All right, hi class. This is going to be a quick tutorial. I say quick, but it's probably going to be a little bit longer than I would like on how to set up your water bottle. So we're going to talk about setting up your volume, setting up your file, and ultimately you'll end up with something that hopefully looks a little bit like this. So we'll have the cap, we'll have the threading, and we'll end up with a bottle that is filled with water to meet our desired volume. So the first thing we want to do, right, is review our design brief, and we want to make sure that we're going to hit all the requirements. So we're going to have a hollow body, a unique feature of some sort, whether that's a grip, um, some sort of attachment on top for you to attach to a keychain, sip lip, something like that. Maybe you want to add a handle or something. Maybe we'll add a handle on this one. Animate the assembly, create an engineering drawing, and include the volume. So we're going to start with the volume actually, since it's good to have a plan when you jump into it. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the scratch paper I provided you. So on the scratch paper, we have a illustration here showing our cubic feet and cubic inches, just so you understand. Cubic inches is a measurement of volume. It's different than ounces, which we're used to. So we're going to have to do a little bit of conversions, but I'll show you how to do that. So here we have our X or Y and our Z axes, and those measurements multiplied together gives you your volume in cubic inches. Most of our bottles, right, are going to be cylindrical. So we're going to be talking about this volume here. So we're not going to be doing the basic length times width times height. It's going to be a little bit different. Now, there is a conversion we have to do, like I said, for ounces, since most of the bottles you see in stores, right, will be measured in ounces. The issue in Fusion 360 is the volumetric analysis isn't perfect. Um, and it's kind of hard to specify exactly what you want unless you go through the methods that we're going to do today. So if this changes in the future, I have to update the video, but for now, it's not as perfect as we might like. Which makes sense because in stores, your water bottles and stuff like that are measured to what they'll actually fill it to. There's an extra gap at the top. So the bottles themselves can hold more than the desired amount. It's what they're actually filling it to. So should be just fine. So the first decision we have to make is the actual height of our water bottle. So it has to be less than 11.5 inches to fit in our 3D printer. So this is entirely up to you. There's no wrong answers here. Understand that the smaller the height is and the larger your ounces are, the wider your bottle will be. So we're going to go for a standard height for a Yeti or something like that. So maybe 8 to 9 ounces or inches, I should say. So I'm going to go 9 inches. Our desired volume, again, I'm going to go for probably a coffee cup here. Maybe I'll add a mug to it. I'm going to add 16 fluid ounces to that. Great. So we got our starting point. First thing we have to do is we have to convert to cubic inches in order for us to calculate out our radius of our the cavity for the inside of our bottle. So we have 16 fluid ounces here, and we're going to multiply that out by 1.809. So we can go ahead and do that really quick, or you can use a converter. Oh my gosh, a converter online. So if I want 16 here, it's going to give me 28.875. Perfect. All right, so we're good to roll. So we can plug that in there, and that's going to be my inches cubed. Now we have to solve for our radius. The equation I gave you here is volume is equal to pi r squared multiplied by h meaning height, v meaning volume, and r being our radius. Remember, radius, right, is half of our diameter, right? A lot of people get confused when they do that, so please be mindful of that you're not punching in your radius for your diameter because you'll get something very wrong. So our inches cubed we found on the last step, so we can go ahead and grab that and punch that in. Pi is just going to be 3.14. You can be more exact if you like, 3.145, etc. Radius, we don't know what this is yet, so we're going to solve for that. And h, I gave you on the first step, which is going to be 9 inches. Great, so we can go ahead and solve for radius. This should be something that you can solve on your own, but we're going to save some time and punch it really quick into Wolfram Alpha. Let's just send it. And so we're going to end up with an answer. All right, it's not going to, oh, this isn't cubed. Always be mindful that you're plugging in the right thing. And I'm probably going to have to figure this out. Whoops, got this there. Doesn't like inches. There we go. Okay, so radius is going to be about 1.01. And we're going to plug that in. So our radius is going to be 1.01 inches. Make sure I'm not specifying negative. Great. Now, with that figured out, we want to decide how thick our walls are going to be for our bottle because again this is going to be the inside of our bottle, right? So we know that the radius is going to be 1.01, but I might want a thickness of an eighth inch for my bottle. I'm picking eighth inch because it's still reasonably thin, but it's strong enough that I don't have to worry about it breaking when I print it. If you have a ruler in front of you, which I highly recommend whenever you're modeling something in CAD, you can take a look at a ruler and decide for yourself. Some people last year picked a quarter inch, which I feel is pretty thick. You end up with a bottle that's going to be very bulky and heavy. But again, that's really up to you. So our radius is going to be an eighth inch, which means we are actually adding a quarter inch total to the entire thickness of the entire thing. So our new radius is going to be equal to the old radius plus our wall thickness. So I said our new radius is equal to 1.01 plus an eighth inch, which is 0.125 inches, which gives us a new radius of 1.135. Great. So that'll give me a jumping off point. So our radius down here is going to be 1.3 or 1.135, and our height will be 9 inches. Great. We're ready to start modeling now. So that entire process right there, right, might take you a minute, might take you some time to figure out, but hopefully this sheet will guide you through it. It's just to figure out that radius that you're going to end up with based on the volume that you want. Again, if you pick a different fluid ounce or a different height, you're going to end up with something very different, and that's quite all right. Okay, I think we're ready to go ahead and start modeling. So we're going to start a brand new project. So you can go up to File and hit New Design, and you should end up in a new workspace. I'll close out the old one. Sure, we'll save it. Why not? The first thing we want to do is we want to set our document settings. So over here on the left under inches, we're going to click the pencil, and we're going to make sure that we're working in inches for this project, right? Since we're going to end up with inches cubed. In other 3D modeling projects, you may work in millimeters or centimeters, but in this one, we're going to work in inches. Before we get started, I'm going to save my file so I have a proper name, especially in case we lose internet, because the internet at school is not the best. You pick a location for it. If you have not already done so, create a folder for yourself that has all of your projects in it. So 2023 S1, that's for me. And I'm going to go ahead and create my file and call this water bottle 16 ounces. Great. Each time you save this, it's going to save a new version. So right now we're on version 0. We're on version 1 now. So each time that we save, it's going to update the version for us. And that's something that you can actually view in your Explorer. So under the data panel here, if we go into that file, you can click the version next to it, and it'll show different versions for you that you can open up and edit. All right. So there's a couple ways for us to get started on this. One is to use the form function, which allows you to get a really cool contour bottle. And the other way is just doing a sketch and a revolve, which you've practiced on the bolt. I'm going to leave that up to you to decide which one you'd like to do. But to start today, I'm going to actually do the create form and try and make one ourselves. So we're going to select the form up here. Again, it's up to you which one you want to do. And it's going to change my header up here because I've changed into a form section. So rather than working within the general modeling section, I'm going to select my cylinder to start, and I will select my bottom axis to draw my cylinder. Now, if you remember over here, I decided what my radius was going to be, right? So we have the inner radius, which is going to be 1.01, and my outer radius is going to be this 1.135. So if I go over here to Fusion, I can draw my shape, and it's going to ask me for the diameter, right? To figure out the diameter, we simply take this measurement here and multiply it by 2. So our diameter of the actual bottle is going to be 2.27. Yes, so 2.27. Great. So over here, we can go ahead and punch that in. And again, that's going to work out great because if my wall thickness is going to be an eighth inch, the inside of it will be the proper measurements that I want, so 2.27 inches. Great. And the height, oh, I mean to do that, did it? Let's try that again. And the height, as I said before, is going to be 9 inches. And that's the basic shape for my bottle. Now, looking at it now, I don't know how much I love the width of it, right? So that's something that you might want to consider when you get to this step. You might want to go back and go, I don't really like this. This looks more like a tube, right? Like a water tube. Um, so we can add some contours to it to make it look a little less weird. Um, Actually, I really hate this. Let's say 9 inches. Maybe I should do 32 fluid ounces. I'm gonna pause this and update my measurements. We'll come back to it. All right, so we're back. So I went ahead and updated my fluid ounces. I actually doubled it to 32. So now this is more of a water bottle than a coffee mug. So I had to go through and fix some of my measurements, right? So we're going to end up with something on the inside like 57.75 inches cubed. Uh, we went ahead and calculated that out to find our new radius, which is 1.42. So again, a little bit bigger, almost a half inch wider in the radius. We're going to end up with our new radius because, again, we're still going to have those 1/8 inch walls, which gives us with a new radius here of the overall mug, right? So this is a big thing I want you to remember is that this is our interior and this is our exterior, right? So this is where the water's going and this is the entirety of the mug. So that's going to change our diameter here to 3.1. We're going to keep our height the same. And now it looks a lot better. It kind of looks like maybe, I don't know, like a little mini hydro flask or something. Um, but over here on the right, I want to point out these cylinder faces, right? So there's a bunch of options over here that we can change. So diameter faces, these have to do with the polygons around the whole outside. I'm going to include some symmetry since I want to play around with a little bit and adjust the sizing of it. So I'm going to have a circular symmetry, and our symmetric faces I'll set to 4. Again, that's going to be up to you on how it is that you want to set this up. Looking at this now, I think we're going to be a-okay. Height faces, I'll increase a little bit more, so I have more options. So 8 and 8, height 9, diameter, good to roll. Great. And our shape should be created. Now, as I click this, you can see that it'll select faces in a symmetry. So I can actually do some presses and pulls with this to make something unique. So I'm going to add some sort of grip texture around the entirety of the bottle. So if I click one of these vertices and I double click it, you'll notice it selects the whole thing. That's that circular symmetry that I added. We're going to end up closing up this bottle and we'll add a little spout up top towards the end, but we're going to work with this just as it is. I'm still recording, right? Making sure this is working great. Okay, so we're going to select these panels going up. You can hold the shift key to select multiple. And because I chose this amount of symmetry, you'll notice that in yellow, it's selecting the others. I'll go to a top-down view. And because it's paper thin, it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to have to go to an angle here. Right click, and we can go to move copy. Great. Oh, and we want to change that to faces. Oh, might have to reselect. Edit form. So sorry. So right click, you have to hit edit form and then select these faces going down. So one more time, if we do select those faces, you can right click and go to edit form. I forgot move copy is the wrong command. So sorry. Click edit form. So we're going to go down. Again, I'm holding shift just to select these out. And I should be able to start to pull these out in a direction to create an effect that I would like. There we go. So a little wavy there. So you end up with something that's a little, bumpy. It's kind of unique. Again, kind of looks like the pumpkins. If you did that project yet, um, just be cautious that when you do that, you don't have them overlap. If you pull a face through another face, it can cause a lot of issues later on. All right, great. We do want to close up these faces here. So when you get to the water bottle step, we can do that. So you right click here, right? So you can click and select the entirety of the bottom. Oh, and it didn't save my edit form. Of course, so we may have to repeat that step. That's okay. Now, if you don't love this and you don't love the amount of symmetry happening, right, that's something that you can edit and very quickly redo so you don't end up with something that looks quite like that. But I like the little spiral bottles there. The neat thing too is you could select, maybe this top portion and pull just the top portion out to create kind of a more um, bulbous top or something like that. Instead of something that's starting to look more vase-like, maybe like an old Coca-Cola bottle or something. So on the bottom here, I'll pull this in a little bit too. And we're starting to sculpt our bottle here. There you go. I think that's acceptable. It looks pretty cool. All right, we're going to close up the bottom here. So again, make sure you press OK. I forgot that before, so we ended up with a form that didn't completely fill. And we'll select this top portion here, and we'll go ahead and we're going to fill this in. Fill hole. Okay, so if I select this whole thing, go to Modify, and select our fill hole. I already lost it. They moved a lot of things around here in the most recent update, so it's a little bit different. Okay, so you can see I just filled the bottom there. There's a couple options here. So reduce star, a collapse, something like that. I find collapse gives you lots of issues, so I would go for the reduce star. That'll give you the least amount of symmetry errors. As you can see, right, it gave me an error immediately when I went to that other one. If you click keep creases, um, it's just a little bit of a different form. I like the bevels there. What I like to do too is as we work and we do things like that, I like to click finish form and see if it returns any errors. So if it does return a T-spline error, that means you have interlocking faces, and that's something you're gonna have to go back and fix. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna leave that the way it is. So we're gonna go back into our edit form and do the same thing for the top. Because we want to add threading on the top, I'll go in here, I'll go to edit that form. We're back in our form edit mode. We want to close up this top and allow for there to be a bottle or a screw on top. Because I'm ending in something that looks like this, we got to get a little creative with it. So I am going to I'll probably add a cylinder later just under the top, just to round out the top. And then I can put a cap on the top. Really, that's up to you how you want to do that. I think I'm going to resolve that issue later now that I'm looking at it. So we'll click the whole top. We're going to select it. And again, we're going to go to our modify and select fill. Oops. Fill hole. And we can fill it up with that reduce star. Great. Now we have some of these ghost lines here, right? That should just be from remnants of my old form. So if I click finish form, hopefully it will not give me any errors. It looks great. Now the last step we have to do is we actually have to thicken this up. Since this wall is paper thin, how thicken or how much we're going to thicken it? Well, we'll give you the answer over here, right? It's going to be 0.125, 1/8 inch. So nice and easy. Go back into our edit form or stay in it if you were already there. And you can select the entire thing. Go to modify. And we're going to go to thicken, okay? And we're going to give it some thickness. So we're going to go for 0.18 or 125, 125. So that's our 1/8 inch, 0.125. Thicken type, uh, sharp, soft. I like soft, so you can retain some of the thickness there. Directions normal. If you pick axes, it'll only go in one direction. So we'll just press OK. And now we have a thickened water bottle. We're going to have to add a hole, obviously, into the top of this thing and move on that way. So we'll click Finish Form. Great. So no errors, which is exactly what you want. If you see some sort of warning down here, that means you have a T-spline body issue. So please go back in and edit your form and attempt to fix it. But for now, we're going to go right along. So I've met the requirement of having like a grip texture, so we're good there. Some of you may choose to do the revolve because this is a little tricky, and that's quite all right. I'll show you how to do that at the end of this video. So our next step is to add a hole, and then we'll have to do the volumetric analysis to fill this up with the amount of fluid that we want. So we want to convert this shape real quick. So I'm going to select it, and we can go to modify. Always remembering which one it is. There Look up real quick. I think they might have moved it. We're going to convert this to be a solid object. Since right now it's being recognized as a form, if we go over here under bodies, we want to make sure that this is showing up as it should. So I'll be right back. All right, so it appears that I was incorrect. This is already converted to a body. When we did the solidify, it's pretty nice that we don't have to worry about that anymore. It's auto-converted. So you'll know if it's a solid body or not because this will actually appear as a as a purple cube. So that's nice that we don't have that step anymore. That really helps out. So we're ready to move on and add our top portion here. To kind of make things easier, we're going to combine a new shape. So right on the toppy here, I'm going to add a spout for me to thread on a cap, and then we'll work to hollow this out. So we're going to create a sketch, and you'll notice that I can only pick these bottom axes here. So what I like to do is create what's called an offset plane. So when we go to construct, you can select offset plane and select the bottom axes here. That allows me to pull this up to the height that I want. Now we know our bottle is 9 inches tall, so it should be pretty easy, right? If I hit 9 inches. And you'll notice that 9 inches, right, is going to intersect a little bit. Why is that? Because I thicken up my bottle by a quarter, or not quarter, I'm sorry, an eighth inch. So I can do 0.125, and that'll take it up to the top there. It's slightly above. And actually, I probably want it to intersect a little bit, so we're going to leave it at 9 inches. There we go. Oh, there's my daughter. All right. We're going to go ahead and add our spigot at the top, so our thing that we're going to be drinking from. So we can go ahead and sketch on this construction plane, and we're going to start with a circle in the center. So the circle here, we can go ahead and draw this out. And this is up to you how big you want the spigot to be. Obviously, we need the exterior dimension, and we need the interior for the water to flow through. So I'm going to go for a measurement of 2 inches, right? 2 inches is nice and even. And if I zoom out, we can go ahead and pull that up. So over here, we have our body here. While I'm thinking of it, I'm going to rename this to water bottle, because that's a good strategy. Things labeled. And under sketches, I have sketch 1. This is going to be for my spout, so I'm going to rename it to spout. And we're ready to extrude this into our shape. So with the spout selected, you can go to the extrude tool. And we're going to actually extrude this from 2 directions, right? So our profile here, we're going to change our direction to 2 sides since we want to make sure that we're intersecting with this here. So we're going to go upwards a distance and downwards a short distance, just a little bit. Okay. The operation we're going to have is a join because we want these to become one and the same. And we're ready to add our bit there. Press OK. Now that looks kind of goofy, so you may want to bevel out the outside here. I'll throw a quick fillet on there to make it more comfortable maybe for your mouth. But we do still want to thread this later, so I won't go too crazy with it. We want to add a hole through the top for us to drink through. So we'll select the topmost bit here, and we can add a hole. So under, I believe that's, great, right here, hole. Drag that to the center. Again, make sure it snaps. And set that to a distance that you would like. So we can do some mental math here. If this is a 2-inch distance and this hole is going to be 1.6, that is 0.4 inches of distance in either direction, which means just shy of a 1/4 inch thickness on each side. I am a-okay with that. A lot of people, when they do this, they'll make this hole like way too big. Be careful that you're leaving an adequate distance. 1.8, that's 1/10 of an inch in either direction. I'm not comfortable with that, so I'm going to go with something like that. Make sure that you have an adequate distance there. If I rotate around, we can see how deep we're going to make this, and I can see that my hole is pointed. We don't want that. So we can adjust the distance down here. I believe we set it to 90. That didn't help. 180. There we go. 180 makes it flat. Great. So we can pull this downwards, and it doesn't matter how long you pull it. Just it has to go beyond the point that we extruded to, so it goes all the way into the bottle. So definitely not so it hits the bottom of our bottle, but just long enough. Again, we're not too concerned with that. Great. Now if I rotate around, we should be able to hopefully see into our bottle. And there we go. You can see in our form, right, we made the thickness there appropriate. So now we have the spout up top, and we're ready to roll ahead and add our threads. So the bottle's looking pretty good so far. We still got a couple more steps, especially in terms of making this thing look more like a water bottle and filling it up with water. So at this point, we have our spout, we have our bottle, and we have our timeline starting to fill up down here. Just remember, if you want to jump back and edit something, you can always pull this timeline back and you can go back and you can edit a specific part if you're not happy with something. But if you edit a feature that's going to interfere with another feature, that can cause a lot of issues later on. Okay, let's add some threading. So we want to create a cap that's going to fit over this. So we could select the outside here, and I'm actually going to use the spout as a reference, right? So we made that 2 inches. So let's draw our cap maybe over here off to the right. So I'll create a sketch on this lower axis, and we'll draw it off to the side here. So 2 inches is going to be the interior here. But if we make it exactly 2 inches, it's not going to fit. It's not going to exactly fit. So we're going to make it just a little bit larger. I'm going to go for a, let's say, 1/10 of an inch, so 2.1 for my interior. So that should go over this. Now, again, we need a thickness on the outside. I'm going to choose to make that, again, 1/8 inch is kind of the theme here in terms of the thickness of my walls. So I'm going to go for a 1/4 inch larger. So then 2.1, 1/4 of an inch, right? 0.25. So we'll go 2.35. That's our exterior, right? No real wrong answers here. That thickness there, that's just going to be how thick you want it to be. And that's going to be the hole that we're going to cut into it. So this sketch here, you can rename it if you want. This is going to be our cap sketch. I would just add 0.1, right, for the interior measurement, by the way. I'm sure that's going to be something that people have a question about as well. How big do I make the interior that's going to go over this? Just add 0.1, right? It's going to work just fine, especially when we add the threads. It's going to mesh together. We're going to have to scale this thing up anyway at the end if we do end up 3D printing it, because if you make something precisely exactly to fit, you have to scale it later. Kind of getting ahead of myself here. Okay, we're going to go to finish sketch, and we're ready to roll. So we're going to extrude this entire thing up and then use this interior size here to cut our inside in, right? To cut the inside for this thread. So we're going to select the entire cap sketch here, and we're going to go to extrude. Make sure that you select the inside too. I know it seems silly. It'll make more sense in a minute. And we're going to pull this upwards. The distance up, right, should probably match the height up here, or even just a little bit higher than that. I'm blanking on how high our extrude was, so luckily we can go into the extrude and double check that. If you go over here and you go to edit feature, it tells me that I extruded upwards in this distance 1 inch and down 0.2. So we're going to go 1 inch there. Great. So we're going to select this whole thing, go to our extrude up, and this extrude up is going to take us up 1 inch. We're going to go ahead, and you'll notice that my sketch disappeared, right? My cap sketch disappeared. We're going to reactivate it for just a minute. So over here, you can click the eye tool to show it. And we're going to select the interior, and we're going to actually pull that up. I feel like I keep making mistakes. We're going to jump back because I want to edit that extrude. I actually want to make that a little bit bigger. Rather than doing 1 inch, we're going to go 1 1/4. And my rationale is that we're going to cut, oh, that was too much. We're going to cut into it. We want our cut in to be 1 inch, right? And so we want to have that gap there. So it'll hopefully sit nice and flush on our cap up there. So 1 1/4 inch, right? We're going to add that extra quarter. So if I go ahead and I show the cap thing again, I can select the middle, and we're going to pull that up. So that we're going to pull up 1 inch. All right. So again, I apologize for that little mistake. If you want to do a little bit extra, that's okay too. If you want, a little bit of a tolerance, why not? We'll add an extra 1/10 of an inch. And we've got our cap. Uh, Again, you may want to fill at the top. Again, this is just purely for aesthetics or appearance. Great. And we're ready to add our threads. So when we select the top up here, you can go ahead and hit create, and you can select your threads. Now we want to be mindful that the sizing that we use for this one is the same as we do down there. When we look over here, we want to make sure that the threads don't go into our bottle, right? Because we don't want it to go quite all that way. Oops, that was way too much. Instead of full length, right, you can click that, and we can make sure that it doesn't go all the way into our bottle. I might be confused because it doesn't look like it actually did the whole thing. Whoops. Select it, create threads. Click modeled. Why is it not visible? I'll show you how to change the settings for the model to make sure it is actually showing, but that doesn't look quite right to me. There we go. Okay, so you may have to go a little bit larger, so it may pop out a little bit. So 2.125. Keep in mind this, right? You may want to write this down. So 2A, designation 2 and 1/8 -6 UN, and that looks pretty good. ANSI. We can click remember size too. That's nice because when we go to the other thing, it should translate. Uh, the reason I put modeled instead of the other thing is it'll actually show you more how it will look when you go to 3D print it. I want to make sure that it's not cutting into our bottle. That looks great. Perfect. Okay, so we have our cap set. So we press OK. Good to go. Awesome. You want to look for gaps around the outside there. So if this is cutting in too far into our bottle, we can actually edit that by going into our coil. And like I said before, if you edit that feature, you can set the, I don't know why it's not showing now. This seems to be glitching. You can set it from full length to something a little bit different. Okay, I'm not really sure why it stopped showing when I went in to edit it. I'm sure it's just a glitch. All right, looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing over here. Again, making sure that we have the same thing, but we're going to go interior this time. Now, if it cuts through, which I'm worried it might, you may have to make the outside of the cap a little bit thicker, but really what matters most is what's on the inside. So we're going to select that and go to our create threads. Select that inside and rotate to the bottom. So 2.125, 2.18-6 UN. And you'll notice it says 3B instead of 3A, right? So 3A is for the part that matches 3B. Right hand, that's just the direction it rotates in. Right hand's fine. Remember size, we already had that clicked, and that looks A-okay to me. So we want to make sure that that doesn't rotate all the way up. If we press OK, you'll see my cap will match. Awesome. Looking pretty good. Now that'll be able to thread right up on top of there, hopefully towards the end of this. Now we're going to add one extra feature. This is something I get asked a lot is, well, how can I do maybe like you might see on a Sprite can? How do we have those threads, those bumps? That could be another extra feature we can throw in here. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. Before we move on, again, make sure you're naming your stuff as you go. So over here it says body. This will be our cap. And we're good to go. Great. We can hide our cap sketch, by the way, and we can add that little side there. So if I select the side of this, I'm going to add the indent I was talking about. I can hit create sketch, and it may not let you create it right on the face. So you may have to create it in offset plane as we tend to do sometimes. So to create that offset plane, again, we hit construct, offset plane, select off of there, and I'm going to pull it until it intersects with the side of my bottle over here. It doesn't have to be perfect because, well, you'll see in a minute. So I'm actually going to come out just a little bit. Again, this step is optional, but you may want to try and accomplish this effect. So let's select this here, and I'm going to create a basic sketch. And I'm going to draw a indent like so. We can adjust the sizing of that. I'm not really thrilled with that. So again, that's something that you could undo and redo. Mm, I'll draw from here over 0.05. 0.05. I'll pull this downwards till uh, zero point 0.9 seems great. I'll draw over 0.1. And I can close that up. So this is just going to be an indent I'm going to make on the bottle and pattern around to create a grip. So when I go to take off my water bottle cap, it'll be a little bit easier to work with. So I can go ahead and click Finish Sketch. And I'm going to pull this in. Now we're going to rename this sketch here to Indent Pattern. And we can pull that in. So we'll hit Extrude. And we're going to change it from a new body to a cut. So when I select this and I pull this in, you'll see I'm actually cutting into my water bottle. I'm just going to cut in just a little bit, just a tiny bit. We want to make sure that we're not cutting all the way through the water bottle, so make sure you're rotating around. You don't want to cut into your threads, and that looks pretty good. Now I can take that and I'm going to pattern that all the way around this bottle. Check it out. So we're going to go to Create, and we'll select Pattern, Circular Pattern. Now it's going to ask me for an object type. We're going to select Faces. Oh, not faces. I'm so sorry. Features. Features. Other F. Object is going to be this. And we're going to, let's see if it change this a little bit. Axes. And we'll select around this axis here. And you see it started to appear. Now, I'm going to increase that quantity up a ton because I want there to be a bunch of them. 23 seems cool. I don't know. What happens if we do 30? 5. Sure, that looks great. And I press OK. Might take a minute to load depending on how many you did and how well our computers can handle this. And I now have a cap with some bumps on it. Great. So this is starting to come together. We have the water bottle cap. We have our water bottle basically ready to go. We just want to make sure that we can fill it up with water now. All right, I'm going to pause for a minute and get myself a drink of water and come right back. All right, so we're back at it. So far, we've gotten our cap and our bottle. We're going to add some appearances now since that's pretty fun, and then we're going to fill it up with some water. So we can right-click. I think they still have it there, and they have the appearance option here. What this will do is this will bring up a window that allows us to select different options for how we want our bottle to appear. So I'm going to go under glass. I'm going to search for smooth, and I like the glass window since that makes it kind of blue. You can drag it and drop it, and it should change your bottle. So you see the entire thing turn to glass. The top here, we might want to be maybe something different, maybe wood. So I don't know what the difference between wood and wood solid is. Some of these may require a download. I like mahogany. We'll throw that on our cap there. Great. So now we have our cap and our water bottle. We want to fill this up now, right? So we can close this out and select our bottle. What we're going to do is we're going to go to create, and it should be under create. Boundary fill. There it is. But before we do the boundary fill, we want to create how high we want our water to actually be filled up to. So because we did our measurements pretty precise, I'm going to assume that we're filling up the bottle right to the top here, right to just underneath this cap. Okay. Again, we're expecting it to be pretty close to that 36 fluid ounces, but we'll see how we do. So we select construct. We're going to do one more offset plane. And this one we're going to use as a tool for how high we're going to fill up our water bottle to. So select your bottom plane and drag it all the way up to that 9 inches, right? Because 9 inches was the height that I said I intended to fill it to. And we'll press OK. Now, if we go into create, we can select our boundary fill. Make sure I'm recording this whole thing, right? Very good. Oh, don't want to open up Cura. We're going to go ahead and select our tools. So our tools will be the bottle itself and the construction plane is how high we're going to fill it to. And you'll see these check boxes up here. So this is the hardest part, is figuring out which checkbox you're actually supposed to press. If you zoom in, it's going to be one of these. Unfortunately, you might just have to guess and check. So when you go to select cells, you're going to select one of these checkboxes and press OK. You want the operation to be a new body, since we're actually going to create something solid that fills up our water bottle. And you'll see now, if I go ahead and I hide my water bottle, I should have something that actually fits the entire volume. But what that did was that actually filled the thickness of my bottle, which is not what I wanted. So we goofed up. So we're going to have to go back and fix that. So I'm kind of glad we did that. Oh, Kira, this is a 3D printing program that opened up. My fault. So we're going to undo that last step, or go into our boundary fill and edit it. So that cell is not what we want. We want to select the other checkbox. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click that off and select this other one here. It'll let me select it. There we go. And then press OK. So now the body that we should have should be the interior of the bottle. So if I go ahead and I hide my water bottle again, that looks more accurate. You'll even see it fits to the top bottom portion of that thread that I did, and we should be good to go. Now, this form, right, we can go ahead and we can apply an appearance to it, is our water. So if I right click it and I go to appearance, we're going to drag a fluid texture to it, and we're going to check the size in a minute. I have to search. I know that they have water textures. Calm C. Sure, why not? You can kind of experiment and see which one looks best. It's not the most important, right? We're more concerned with how it's going to look, or how it'll actually work, I should say. All right, good enough. If we select the body here, again, we're going to rename this to water. You can right click on it and go to properties. What you're going to see is you're going to see it measured in our volume as cubic inches. So we got 77.625. I don't know if that's what we wanted. It's actually a little bit bigger than what we wanted, right? But if we go ahead and we convert that by multiplying it out by 0.555, we can figure that out real quick. Let's see. How off are we? We might have filled it up maybe a little too high, or maybe me pulling these out corners, right? These corners out, these might have actually gave us a little bit more, so 77.625. Constant. 43 fluid ounces. So by pulling that, I ended up with, an additional 7 fluid ounces, which really is not the end of the world. That's pretty close. It's quite all right, but we ended up pretty close. So again, that was just from doing the form there. So great. If I click off and I show the rest of it, I'll now have water on the inside of my bottle, and we're ready to move on. I'm going to hide this construction plane since I don't want it there. You can go under here and just hide them individually. And we're ready to assemble our cat. So we've got like 2 or 3 steps left to do. We have to do our drawing, we have to do our animation and our components, which you should know how to do from the bottle. So we'll see. Maybe we'll cover that. Maybe we won't. And we'll go in and do our render. So the render is a new one that I don't think that we've done yet. So let's jump to the render, since that's kind of fun. If you go into the render tab, you'll end up with a new window here, which allows us to kind of view our bottle so far. We can rotate about in the space, and you'll see we're actually casting a realistic shadow. Under our render settings, right, we can go under setup, and we can change our appearance of our bottle just like we did before in our scene settings. We can change what we're dealing with here. So the background we can do as a solid color, or we can change it to an environment setting. Under our environment library, we have some different settings, so we can change it to a field for some reason, or maybe you're in a soft light environment, so you can just click that and drag it and drop it, and it'll change the environment that you're in. Some people like these settings. I think that they're kind of fun. So why don't we put the crossroads in there? We'll make it look like we're in the desert. It might take a minute to load. And there we go. So it looks like we're out in the desert right now showing this off. Of course, the shadows look hyper unrealistic, but people tend to like that. So we'll just go with the grid light for now. Great. Under the scene settings here, you can change the focal length of your camera. You can change the aspect ratio. You can even change the brightness of the light around you. And this is just a loose render, right? So what a render does is it takes photos over and over and over of your model in order to create a hyper realistic or photorealistic view of what your model might look like. This is great if you were trying to pitch this maybe at a design meeting and you wanted to show off what you were making. And the more time that you give it, right, the better quality that your render will come out. So we can go ahead and click play and do an in-canvas render, and you'll see that it will start to calculate it over and over and over. We can adjust this bit here all the way up to final. So that way it'll do more and more calculations until we end up with something that looks more realistic. So this will just take some time now. I'm going to pause the video for a moment and we'll come back and see what the finished product looks like. This just might be something that'll take a little bit of time for you to run. Again, I would do this after you're done modeling everything, but maybe before you animate it so you come out with something really good. All right, we'll be back in just a moment. All right, so I'm going to jump right back in. The render is still going, but it's not fully finished yet. You might notice some of these refractions here going on. Oh yeah, if you zoom, you'll totally reset the process. I don't love that, so you might want to hide the water for this. Fusion isn't the best at calculating water against glass, so that might be an issue that you encounter, especially because it's right up against it. But once you get the render that you like, you go up here and you click save, and it will actually save the current view. So because it's not fully rendered, I'm going to have all these pixels in here because I didn't let it finish. But you would just save it and press OK, and you can save this to your computer and submit that as your render file. So again, I'm not going to finish this right now. I have a potato of a computer, so it's going to take a little bit of time to finish up. So we're going to go to our drawing here, and we're going to create a drawing from the design. It's going to ask you to create a brand new drawing, so we're going to say full assembly and press OK. I haven't forgotten. I am going to go back at the end and show you how to do this as a revolve if you, again, are not interested in doing the form. I'll put a timestamp up for you, so if you want to jump to that section, if the form is too complicated for you, if you're encountering issues, there is another way to do that. So we can go ahead and place the base view. You'll see my scale here is set from 1 to 4. That makes the most sense. If you do like a 1 to 2, a half scale, it tends to be kind of big. So we're going to go for a 1 to 4. Over here, we have a lot of options. We have our front orientation and the way we want it to show. So visible edges. And I think we're going to show this as a wireframe. So if I press OK, I don't know if it'll actually show as a wireframe. There we go. I like to do a realistic view up here to kind of show it. So our front view, we're going to add another view. So create, and we'll select another base view. But this one, we're going to do a top view. Again, I like to align these the best that I can. Looking at these, we might actually be able to get away with a 1 to 3 view to make it a little bit bigger. Let's see. Try make it as big as you can. Just like this. And I'll set this to 1 to 3. And we want to add one more view, so we're going to create, well, actually, we're going to add 2 more views. So we'll do a view in 1 to 3 of a side view. So again, that's right or left. It's up to you. I'm going to pick the right side so I can get my cap in there. And we'll press OK. I'm going to reorient these views so that they line up a little bit better. So I'll have this up at the top. This will go here. And this will line up there. And we're going to add in our isometric view up there. So if I go over here, I'm going to hit create. I'll create one more base view. And this one we're going to do as an isometric. So under this, we're going to change it to a, let's do Southwest isometric. And this one we can scale up a little bit. Why don't we do this one in 1 to 2? And we'll change our style here to be a shaded view because we want to get those nice textures in there. The rest of these should not be shaded, right? We just want one view to be shaded. And there we go. And we got a little view of it. It's interesting showing the bottom here. That's a little bizarre looking. So maybe we want to adjust that and change that to a... There we go. I like that one much more. Okay. And we have our bottle set. Now you want to adjust down here. You can change this from admin project. We'll change this to Mr. Fowler's water bottle. It's no longer 16 ounces, so we can adjust that. So we can change this to 32-ounce water bottle and cap. Title 2, I don't really need a Title 2 or Title 3. Approved by, you don't have to worry about any of this. Scale 1 to 4. It's actually a 1 to 3 for most of it, so we can adjust that from 1 to 3. We don't need to worry about weight, drawing code, sheet, all that is fine by me. So we can click Finish Properties, and that's A-OK. Last thing we have to add is some measurements. So you can go ahead and add some dimension lines here. So for the top interior, it might be good to know what your radius is. Again, this is a callback to AutoCAD. So we can add in some of those dimensions. Remember, we don't need to share like dimensions. So if I have the height here, so for example, I go in and I add my dimension from the top here. I can go in dimension, linear dimension from the top to the bottom. I'm not going to put that in on the other side. It might be easier to go from the center for that one. Okay, so it's 10.09. You may want to show maybe the interior here, since we said that was going to be 9 inches. You may want to show that. So you can hit the dimensions and go again to your linear dimension. Select your center on the bottom here and go all the way up to... 9.17, since we did have a little bit of an adjustment there. Especially when we went into the form and we thickened it up a bit, there's that little bit of a difference. You may want to show the height of this cap, etc., etc. So you can add in some dimensions in that manner there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump back into our drawing. Again, take your time on doing this, and when you are finished, you're going to go to the export as a PDF. So you can export all sheets and press OK, and you'll be good to go ahead and export that to your computer right here. So you can save to my computer, and you can save it under your downloads. Good, but we're going to jump back into our design here to take a look at it, and we really only have 2 more steps left. So we covered the render. Looking back at our design brief, we've covered the render. We've covered the engineering drawing. We've covered the volume. We've covered the just about everything. The last things we have to do is our components and just show you the alternative method for accomplishing this. So if we go back to design, again, this should probably be the last step you do, which is creating the actual assemblies. We're going to assemble our water bottle here. So if we select our water bottle, again, we have 3 bodies here. We have our water bottle, and our cap. We're going to create a component. So you can go up here and we can go to assemble and new component. So we're going to select this first one, standard, and that's our water bottle. You can press OK. And you'll see down here, it just created our water bottle component. We'll do the same thing for the cap. So selecting our cap here, should be the only thing selected. You go up to assemble and you select new component. Recording, right? Always get paranoid I'm not. All right, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have that selected and press OK. And we'll have our second component there. And so now we're ready to assemble this device. So we go to assemble and we're going to create a new joint. So our component 1 is going to be our water bottle, right? And our component 2 is going to be our cap. Cap should be our water bottle here. And we want to make sure it snaps. Now, this doesn't appear to look right to me, so we're going to deselect these and just try it again. So Let's hide our water so we don't accidentally deselect that. So our snap, if we zoom in up here, there we go. You may have to hold control. And so if you hold control, you can mouse over and select the center of this bottle here. You'll notice the whole thing turns away. I'll do that one more time. So our first object we're going to select is our water bottle. And so we're going to zoom into the mouth of our cap here. I go to the outside and hold control and then select the center dot. If I don't have control selected, it's going to be really hard to select that sometimes. So if I hold control, I'm guaranteed to select the center there. And that little wheel right there, that's what we're trying to select. So that's our center snap point. Now for our second component, we're going to select our next snap. And our next snap is going to be on our cap. So if we go over here and we go underneath our cap, we can select this. Again, mousing over the outside, you'll see I want to select that center point there. And it's going to move our bottle to our cap. Perfect. And so we're going to show it actually getting screwed onto our bottle. So if we go under motion, we're going to change our motion type to a cylindrical. And that looks insane, right? So we're going to have to fix that in a minute. It's nice because they included joint motion limits. So this is a nice update that it's all included right inside of here. So we have our minimum and our maximum. So we're going to change our minimum and our maximum for this slide. So the minimum seems to be 0 and our maximum, we're going to have to experiment. I think it's going to be 1 inch. Oh, it's going to be a -1, I guess. So our maximum will be 0 and our minimum will be a -1. Okay, so that's -1. So now if we hit play, it'll show that it'll actually slide in and out. And we can go to our revolve here and click play, and it should hopefully show it sliding in when we get to the end there. So that looks a-okay to me, and we're going to check it out. You can adjust your revolve limits here if you wanted it to revolve more or less. Again, that's not important. That's just purely for a render or a preview view. So we can go ahead and press OK. And we can actually go ahead and double click this flag here, and we can press and pull it up and down, and it should show the bottle moving in. Now I'm not seeing a slide there, so we're gonna have to create what's called a motion link. So if we go over here to assemble, we can select a motion link, and we can select our joint here, which is the center point there, and we want the cylindrical to be a rotate on the Z. Link with same joint, and you can see it'll actually go that way. So again, I'll do that one more time. What we did was we went to assemble and we selected motion link. We selected that flag because that is representative of our joint. You want to change it from a slide to a rotate and select your link with the same joint. So this is what I was talking about before. If you want it to go faster, you can adjust this. Like if I type 720, it's going to go 3 times as fast, or leave it as the default at 360. And there we go. And then we have our piece joining together. So we've created our joint, we've created our engineering drawing, we've created our render, and we've got our bottle looking great. And so now if I go in and I click that flag, and hopefully if I pull it down, it'll actually rotate into place like it should in real life. Awesome. Now our last step was for me to show you the alternative for doing the bottle in form, right? So if you remember way back here, all the way in my timeline, I created this in a form. The alternative to doing that is simply doing our revolve. So this will be what it looks like if we do it differently. So if we create our sketch and we select this side view, again, this is optional. If you choose to do it this way, I'll go ahead and put the timestamp on the comment. Let's see, how far along are we? We are, all right, 58 minutes. All right, cool. So 58 minutes you're going to want to jump to if you want to see this. Going back to our scratch paper, 9-inch, we're going to keep the height the same. And our radius here is 1.55. So I'm going to actually copy that because I'm going to forget it. So again, alternatively, if you didn't want to do the form, you could draw out your shape this way by going to the center. We'll draw out a distance. So that's going to be 1.5542. You can draw a line up here from the center. That's going to be, 9 inches. And you're just going to create a shape that'll pull that all together. So whether that's, you want to do a spline. Again, the more that you jump out, the more that's going to increase the volume like we saw before, right? 1.55 is your minimum. This bulbous part here, that's going to increase the size of our bottle. So now if I click Finish Sketch and I select this and I go to a Revolve, right, I can select my axes, which is this vertical axis here, and that'll be my bottle. Basically, you'll repeat all the steps that I did in this video that I did with the form, like right after this first step. All this other stuff you'll do with this, but it'll just save you from having to deal with the form. I like the form because it gives you, I think, a lot more freedom in terms of your design. But again, that's entirely up to you. I hope you find this video useful. If you have any questions or comments, please, reach out to me. Happy to help. Thanks very much and best of luck.